James heard my words, and his face turned dark with displeasure. He retorted, "I've already thanked you for taking the fall. What more do you want from me? This house is under my name now, and Greta will give birth in a few months. There's not enough room. You need to move out. We can't afford to support an idler." In his eyes, 2 years in prison for him was worth only a single thank you. Asking for more made me the unreasonable one. Melanie chimed in, "Nina, don't you get it? A woman's fate is to marry and have children, not live off her family. We were hoping to marry you off to a good man and get some money, but now, as an ex-convict, no one will want you. Letting you stay here is already us considering old time's sake." Greta added, "Exactly. You've been to prison, so you'll be poor forever. If we let you stay, you drain us dry." Greta rubbed her belly and spoke mercilessly. Seamus put out his cigarette and said coldly, "Janina, you're grown up now. It's time you understood the importance of contributing to the family instead of causing trouble." Each of their words felt like a sharp knife piercing my heart. Despite my overwhelming disappointment, my eyes welled up. I looked at them and said hoarsely, "No wonder you never visited me once during my 2 years in prison. I thought you were just too busy to see me. But now I see you only saw me as a moneymaker. You kicked me to the curb without hesitation the moment I couldn't make money anymore." I tilted my head back, fighting to hold back my tears. Then, I asked, "So you're all determined to kick me out today?" "Yes," Seamus replied without hesitation. Melanie, James, and Greta all looked equally resolute. Clearly, there was no room for negotiation. I saw no trace of affection in their eyes. I nodded, my heart completely broken. "Fine, as you wish. From today, we're done. And I hope you won't regret it." I finally saw them for what they were. These people I'd longed for during my 2 years in prison didn't deserve my sacrifices. The 100 million I had planned to share with them would now remain with me. Without another word, I walked out the door, not looking back. Behind the door, I heard Greta's resentful roar, "You think too highly of yourself. What's there to regret to cut ties with a broke ex-convict like you? If we let you stay here and mooch off us, that's when we'd really regret it." Leaving that heartless home, I wandered the streets alone for a long time before finally finding a hotel to stay in. Lying on the bed, I stared at the 9-figure balance in my bank account, lost in thought. I used to believe I lived in a very happy family. My father patiently comforted and advised me when I faced difficulties at work. My mother would bring my favorite soup to my office when I worked late. My brother would come to pick me up from work when it rained. I felt like the cherished little princess of the family. I was always puzzled whenever I saw stories online about parents favoring sons over daughters. How could such families exist? How could parents not love their daughters? But now, I finally grasped that awful feeling of helplessness and disappointment. I realized I had always been part of such a family. All the love I had felt was conditional, based on my usefulness. To them, I was more like an investment. Their love was the cost, and my money was the return. So, the gifts of fate had always come with a hidden price. When I could make money and ensure a comfortable life for everyone, they smiled warmly at me. But now, they saw me as an ex-convict who couldn't find a job, with no money and no value. Their love had vanished completely. Little did they know, this ex-con had 100 million in her account. I couldn't help but feel a bit excited, wondering how they'd react when the daughter they despised most stood at the pinnacle of success one day. The next day, I arrived at a hotel in the city center. This wasn't just any hotel. It was a top-notch, sprawling establishment that catered to dining, lodging, banquets, and even business activities. It had 8 floors and occupied an entire building. The location, surroundings, and foot traffic were all excellent. Before I went to prison, I worked as a hotel lobby manager. Naturally, I wanted to return to my old profession. Only this time, not as a manager but as the owner. I negotiated with the hotel's owner for several hours and eventually bought the hotel from him. I took over management that very day. From then on, I lived and ate at the hotel, seizing every moment to learn and develop new management and operational strategies. Under my leadership, the hotel's business flourished, becoming so popular that it was almost impossible to get a reservation. I soon became a bona fide wealthy woman in the city. One evening, 6 months later, while inspecting the dining department, I overheard James in a private room. "This hotel is so popular. I had to book my son's 1-month celebration 2 months in advance just to get a table. I've heard that only the creme de la creme get to dine here. James, you made it, bringing us to such a lavish place." I froze in place and realized James had brought our parents and a bunch of relatives to this private room for his newborn son's 1-month celebration. Melanie was busy showing off by recording videos on her phone. My face appeared in the frame when her camera panned to the door. "Janina? What are you doing here?" Melanie put down her phone and frowned at me. Upon hearing this, everyone in the room turned their gaze towards me, standing at the doorway. "Janina, have you no shame? You knew we were having a banquet here today and followed us just to scrounge a meal." Greta rushed over and scolded me as if I were the plague. "Who said I was here to scrounge for food?" I replied calmly. "What are you here for if you're not here to scrounge? Begging? This is a high-end place reserved for the wealthy. If you're hungry, go dig through the trash outside. That's where you belong," she said, crossing her arms and looking at me with utter disdain. The other relatives also frowned and glared at me, their expressions filled with disgust as if I were an annoying fly. James spoke up, too, clearly unhappy. "Janina, when you said you wanted to cut ties with us, I thought you had some backbone. But now, you've stooped to follow us for a free meal. It's really disgusting. Before I could respond, Seamus chimed in, Janina, I taught you from a young age to be self-reliant and have some backbone. Have you forgotten? How could you throw away your dignity for a meal? I looked at them and sneered, it's just a meal. It doesn't matter to me. You're really something, aren't you? Sour grapes, huh? As if you, a penniless ex-con, could ever afford a meal here even if you worked your whole life, Greta sneered.